All right, therealestateexperts.com, and the theme of this show today, the realestateexperts.com real estate show, has been really about how bureaucracy and government regulation and regulate and enforce mentality in the government and the public education system and people's overreaction to things has really destroyed our country. From an operational functionality standpoint. And because people have gotten so incapable of making good judgment calls and critical thinking skills in the things that they do, we are about to go through a time over the next 2 to 3 or 4 years where robots and artificial intelligence, which is almost there now, are going to start creating massive job losses. That will be the next financial crisis. That will be the next foreclosure crisis. And it's less than 5 years away. So I highly encourage you to prepare for it 2 ways. If you're in business and you're working, think about what is in your life that you do every day that can be automated and start learning how to raise your acumen and skill set, or else you will be automated out of an income or a job. Second, prepare your assets that you don't plan to retain for the next 10 years because we are entering, in my view, a crisis level in this country, culturally. Let me back up a second, then we'll get to Facebook. I had a guy call me that's a close friend of mine that works for a company that sells something, and I want to be real vague about this, and he was talking about an article specifically and recently in the New York Times. And he was explaining it to me because I am also his friend as well as his client, and vice versa. He's bought stuff from me in my world. And he was explaining to me how bogus this article was in the New York Times, and he's not a Trump fan. He's not a big never Trumper. He's just never been a big Trump fan. And I said, can I stop you here for a minute? I'll call him John. It's not his name. I'll call him John. I said, John, here's the thing. Before I say that, I want to back up. There's a big piece here I was about to miss, and I don't know how to weave it in at the end. The person that was most covered in the article as being evil and bad and all this, which I don't believe. I think it's all a BS article, had the night prior committed suicide. And I believe it was a result of the backlash and fallout of that article. These are highbrow people. And if I said the name, half my audience might even know who they are. You probably couldn't Google it from what I'm telling you and find the story because I don't want you to get lost in the details. I want you to think about the big picture. So I said to him, this person at the New York Times is someone that I want you to think about for a second. I want you to look at this. I want you to turn this thing around and look at it from a Trump perspective. This is why Trump calls the New York Times a kind of organization that's the enemy of the people. Because you have a reporter who has taken the everyday operation of the industry for which he's reporting on and the people of which he's trying to destroy here. That is absolutely normal, and every business in that industry functions the exact same way. Now, you may or may not like it, but it's a normal, accepted, tolerated, decades-long culture of this industry, and they're reporting it as if though it's the egregious exception, with outrage. Even there was a comment in there making out the guy, one of the leaders as being, he talks about the Bible. Oh my God, right? Like that's some sort of manipulation. And in the context I happen to know of the guy, I don't know him. That's not his context. It's kind of like if you want to talk about God, I'll give you a free Bible. Love to take you on the side, but we're in the middle of doing business now. I'm just inviting you to do that because I love the conversation. It's not like, hey, look how great I am. God, let's all pray and let me screw you while you're doing it. It's not that kind of religious, but that's how it's reported. Okay. And I said, this is why you have to understand what Trump means to the country, whether you like Trump or not. And there's things I like about Trump, things I don't like. But what he means to the country is he's a guy that's finally saying, wait a minute, you can't get away with that anymore. You can't decide that because you're dumb and ignorant and you're going to report something that's news to you that may not be news to half the people that understand this industry, and you're going to report it as a big, bad, negative thing. And I said, this is because the media in this country, social media, the people that run social media, the people in media, print, television, even some radio to some extent, their reporting of a Trump or a news story like this that affected my friend is a reflection of their outrage to their own stupidity. They're stupid. They don't know. They're learning something for the first time you and I may have known all our lives. And they're outraged at how stupid they are, and they conflate that outrage onto the subject of their stupidity or their ignorance. That's what it is. So when you see Jake the Airhead Tapper going after Trump, or this little troll Acosta on CNN, I haven't watched these people in months. That's not because they really are that hateful of Trump. They're hateful. Their emotion that you're seeing that's so maddening is an emotion created out of their own stupidity and lack of acumen and low IQ. They're mad they don't know what they need to know to cover this guy or to cover that story if it's unrelated to Trump. That's why they outrage. They are into the mundane and the simple and the predictable because the dumbasses of our world can thrive when they can contain it to simple and mundane. That's the world we're in. So let's transition to Facebook. Peggy Noonan of the Wall Street Journal had an article a week or two ago called "Overthrow the Prince of Facebook." And she's talking about the meetings that she was asked to come to, wherein she was asked to sign a document, come into Facebook. We want to meet these high-powered, and Peggy Noonan's on Meet the Press. She's more of a conservative commentator. Sometimes people like her, sometimes they don't on conservative aisles, but she's a pretty smart girl, and she writes some really good articles, and she's got some pretty good principles. And she was invited to a Facebook meeting. I believe she went to the first meeting and was asked at this thing to basically sit there and keep it all confidential and private and all of this. And it was all just a Mr. Zuckerberg and the God of our world, Zuckerberg, and all this stuff. And she's like, this is disgusting. And then there was another meeting that came up, and they had the Mr. Zuckerberg people call again. Not Mark himself, but just calling, we'd love to have you here, and we'd like to put out some ground rules. And she says, I'll come as a journalist and a reporter for which I can take an account of this meeting and write whatever I deem necessary about it. But Mr. Zuckerberg would prefer you not do that. Well, I prefer I don't see Mr. Zuckerberg then. And she bailed on him and said, kiss my rear end, and not so many words. And I thought, wow, good for her, because there's what's missing in journalism in America. Is that these reporters are so desperate for that kind of access, they'll sell their own mother up the river for that. So the point of this article is that Facebook really needs to be broken up. And that's to some Democrats' credit, if they've done anything good in the last decade, they're talking about Google and Facebook and Apple and Amazon and whether or not they're in antitrust violations ought to be broken up. Some Republicans have jumped on that. Good for them. This is the kind of conversation we need to start having in this country because Facebook basically took money from Russians. This wasn't Trump. Facebook took the profit from Russians in order to attempt to engage in the manipulation of our election. That's really what happened. Because they're greedy. And that may not be Zuckerberg himself. I think Zuckerberg is a typical product of companies that get way too freaking big, like Bank of America. The CEO, Bryan Moynihan at B of A, may not be a bad guy, but he's an idiot. Okay? It's the people that work a layer or two down from him that have confused him into thinking they're good that are really the evil of the bank. They're creating a culture of destruction of their customers. And they get away with it because they're a quasi-government entity. They're so big. Facebook is of the scale of many countries put together. The power of Facebook is unlike anything we've ever seen in the world. The power of suggestion, the power of presentation is as big and powerful as the Roman Empire and nearly that of the United States of America. In fact, it has more influence in world discussion than any country ever, including ours. It has a monopoly on content and conversation that is of the like that is just existential. And that's why countries like China and parts of Europe have really clamped down while we've sat on our lazy butts and our hands under our rear ends as a political group, Democrats and Republicans, and done nothing. It's not that Mark Zuckerberg has to be evil. It's that he has to have people that have convinced him that they're doing their job for the betterment of Facebook while they are manipulating all of us. The core tenet of Facebook is evil at its core. They've determined that their job is to give you a drug, your own dopamine in your brain, the happy hormone. The every time you get a like or a response or a reaction or the attention or something pops up into your inbox to distract you in your day, it gives you a little bit of a dopamine hit. And as this happens a few hundred times over your use of Facebook or Twitter or Instagram, this gets you addicted to checking it over and over and over again and going back and back and back. And many of us go, I'm not one of those. But even though we say we're not, even people like me that might not go on Facebook more than 2 or 3 times a week still find ourselves getting distracted and sucked in at times. I've often thought, if not for being in business, I sure would do this, of just canceling my account, like literally putting it on hold or absolutely deleting it, because I think it's bad. I'm not an old fogey in saying this. I think Facebook at a level is good, but I don't think Facebook should be able to do the number of things it gets to do. The wickedness of Facebook watching every move you make on your browser. If you're on Zillow, and this is a sales pitch and it's also sick. If you're on Zillow searching and you've got a Facebook that's been open on your browser, it's tracking you. And it's watching what homes you're looking at and how you're behaving on other websites. And then it's selling that data that's not selling your name and contact information. It's selling your generalization, your ID number to groups like My Web Vendor, who then put in homes that we have that we want you to favor. It's favoring our stuff. So if you're selling a home for right now until this is outlawed, it's completely legal. It's completely above board in the sense of legality. This is huge for home sellers, and it's producing massive results for our clients. And if it was just that as to where it stopped, I don't know if I'd have as much problem with it, but that is just the beginning. It goes further and it goes further beyond the real estate business to what's being tracked and kept and stored about us. Not that there's anything to hide necessarily, at least for me, but it's what they're doing with it to manipulate our experiences online that scares me. We'll leave it there, therealestateexperts.com. In the meantime, we'll hope you'll reach out if you need to buy or sell housing. Have a great weekend.